We're going to call the Chino Valley Independent Fire District Board of Directors regular board meeting of September 11th, 2019 to order. Roll call shows that we're all here. And first thing I'd like to do is ask all members of the board and the audience, please silence your cell phones. I've already done mine. I'm usually the one that forgets, so please silence them. And with that, I wanted to remind everybody that we will be videotaping this meeting. We videotape all our meetings now as well as audio tape all our meetings, so wanted to make sure everybody was aware of the videotaping. And with that, would you all please rise for a flag salute? And Mr. Na, would you lead us in a flag salute, please?
Okay, let's start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for invocation. Chaplain.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for your amazing love for each and every one of us. Dear Lord, I want to pray that you pour out a blessing on this meeting of board of directors and leaders of this fire department. And I pray, Father, that you being the leader of the universe, the creator, you being the ruler of all the earth, Lord, we want to thank you for granting us grace and favor in everything that we desire to do. And I pray, Father, that you give these leaders wisdom, that you your name be honored and glorified by the words of their mouths, Lord, in plans, decisions that are made, Lord, that they will be according to your purposes. And I pray, Father, for a special blessing, Lord, for every leader, for every person that is responsible for the affairs of this city and of the fire department of Chino and Chino Valley. And I thank you, God, that you just oversee everyone and you're pleased with those who do your will, for those who willingly submit to your power and your will. We thank you and we give you all the grace, all the honor and all the glory. In Jesus' most precious name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask the clerk, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Just one. Staff has requested that the closed session be pulled from the agenda. Okay. Presentation and announcements. Employee Service Awards. Finance Director Steve Heidi, 15 years. Please come to the front.
Well, congratulations on 15 years. It's, we're honored to have you. We've been so lucky and the things that you brought us through. I've been here 13 years, and we've come a long way from the 13 years I've been here. So I attribute that to you and everything you've done with finance. So thank you so much for your 15 years of service. We look forward to hopefully 15 more, but I don't know what's at least. At least, okay. I'm good with that. I'm sure the chief's good with that. So Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Present that to him, and then do his pin picture.
Steve, thank you. That's a nice, that's for your me room.
There you go.
All hard.
I have a me corner.
And Steve, it's my honor to present you with your 15-year pin. Congratulations on 15 years. Thank you for all that you do for us. I have learned a tremendous amount from you about finance, and I've had an opportunity over the course of my nearly 28-year career here to work with some great people. You are one of the most intelligent, hardworking people that I've had the honor of working with. So thank you for all that you do. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all the guidance you provided to me and to our Can we sit in here? Did you want to introduce your family to us tonight?
Okay, sure, I have my wife Gabrielle, my daughter Jackie. Good to see you.
Gabrielle, thank you for sharing.
Okay, Firefighter Day of Remembrance Proclamation. Whereas the 18th anniversary of the most devastating terrorist acts to ever hit our homeland is upon us, and whereas the profound acts of cowardice by the terrorists on September 11th, 2001 resulted in the horrific loss of life at the World Trade Center towers, the Pentagon, and a rural field of Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and whereas our brothers and sisters responded to the attacks that dreadful day, rescuing thousands of citizens, and as they always do, displaying honor, commitment, and sacrifice above and beyond the call of duty that have become to define the firefighter profession, and whereas the firefighters who perished that day and those who worked as part of the massive recovery and support efforts remain pillars of courage to all for their selfless acts of bravery and devotion to their fellow citizens. And whereas the loss of our brothers and sisters in the collapse of the World Trade Center towers following those attacks has burned a place in the public consciousness of the date 9/11 and made it the day of remembrance for firefighters throughout the world. And whereas memorials and monuments like those at Ten House in New York City, the IAFF Fallen Firefighter Memorial in Colorado Springs, and the 9/11 Memorial at Chino Valley Fire District Administration give us a place to reflect on the selfless acts of courage and duty of not only to those who fell on September 11th, 2001, but those we have lost since and those who carry on. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Chino Valley Fire District Board of Directors proclaims September 11th of each year to be solemnly recognized as Firefighter Day of Remembrance, recognizing all firefighters who fall in the line of duty everywhere. Presented at the regular meeting held on the 11th day of September 2019. Proclamation, Fire Prevention Week. Whereas this week commemorates the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, which killed more than 250 people, left 100,000 homeless, destroyed more than 17,400 buildings, and burned more than 2,000 acres. And whereas today fire kills more than 3,000 people in the United States each year, and more than 80% of all fire deaths occur in the home. And whereas escape planning and practice is a commitment to safety, as in a typical home fire, you may have as little as 1 to 2 minutes to escape safely from the time the smoke alarm sounds. And whereas the NFPA declares the 2019 Fire Prevention Week theme, "Not every hero wears a cape. Plan and practice your escape," reminding everyone to be a hero for safety. By taking small but important actions as creating a home escape plan, you can be a hero. And whereas the Chino Valley Fire District is committed to the safety of life and property from devastating effects of fire. And whereas the Chino Valley Fire District is joined by the City of Chino, City of Chino Hills, County of San Bernardino, and the Chino Valley Fire Foundation, as well as other emergency providers, businesses, schools, service clubs, and organizations in their fire efforts. And whereas the Chino Valley Fire District calls upon the people of the Chino Valley to participate in safety and preparedness activities at home, work, and school, and to take the steps needed to make their homes and families safe from fire. And whereas the Chino Valley Fire District will hold its annual open house at the Fire District Training Center on Saturday, October 12, 2019, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Chino Valley Fire District proclaims the week of October 6th through 12th, 2019 as Fire Prevention Week. See something, say something proclamation. Whereas in July 2010, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security launched a national campaign to recognize behaviors and indicators of terrorism and terrorism-related crime, as well as the importance of reporting suspicious activity to state and local law enforcement. And whereas DHS provides valuable resources to communities because an informed, alert community plays a critical role in keeping their community and our nation safe. And whereas the National Awareness Campaign works with partners year-round to inspire, empower, and educate the public on suspicious activities and potential threats. And whereas the Fire District established Bleed Safe Chino Valley, a program designed to increase survivability from potentially preventable causes of death due to trauma. And whereas Bleed Safe Chino Valley provides valuable training, enabling community members to evaluate their state of readiness and empowering them to take action in a traumatic incident. And whereas by being watchful and reporting unusual activities such as unattended vehicles, abandoned backpacks, and packages to your local law enforcement. And whereas the Chino Valley as the Fire District will continue to build upon the relationships established with local law enforcement and city officials and continue to support those members of the Chino Valley Fire District serving in a terrorism liaison officer position to maintain public safety. And now therefore be it proclaimed that the Chino Valley Fire District Board of Directors proclaims September 25th, 2019 as If You See Something, Say Something National Awareness Day. Public communications. This is the time and place for the general public to address the Board of Directors about subjects that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. The public may address items on the agenda at the time addressed by the board. Due to board policy and board act requirements, action may not be taken on any issue not on the agenda. When you address the board, please come up to the podium, state your name and address prior to making your remarks. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. And we have one request to speak.
We do have a request?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Mr. Goldman?
My name is Brad Goldman. My address is 16096 Pinnacle Road, Chino Hills. I'm here before you guys. I don't normally come to these meetings. I normally limit them to city council meetings in Chino Hills. But like I said, I'm a resident of Chino Hills in the Canyon, and so I do kind of keep an eye and kind of check out your guys' agendas and do that. And I'm here before you because it's disturbing to me that there's been some issues with some of the directors with regards to what I see as inappropriate behavior. Public servants are held to a higher standard than the citizens at large. I think that's a standard that we all assume is true, that goes for firefighters, police officers, and elected members of, the city council and boards, fire boards. And so last week after I was going through the minutes, I noticed two things. That Director Nguyen brought up issue that he should have recused himself and not addressed at all with regards to the workman's compensation. And then also that there are communications that are brought before you guys that are private, and that it seems that in my reading of the minutes from the last fire board meeting, is that someone has been helping him and has been given access to his emails or something like that in helping him. And I'd like to have that either fully investigated or answered by him, that if that has been the case, if someone has been access to that, and if so, if you name those people, because I think that's something that should be fully investigated by the board, because that serious liabilities to the board, to the city at large, if people are having information, if it's just lawsuits or other, private communiques and stuff like that. This is something that should seriously be looked into. And, in this situation, I either ask that Director Nguyen, step down because he has been centered. And, I'm a member in the Canyon, and, we're going through brush clearance right now. you know, we need a fully functional board to be able to accomplish what needs to be done in the city. There's a number of issues that need to be fully addressed, and with, you know, a member that's been censored and is not able to carry out that out, you know, it either needs to be looked into to see if there are concerns, or, you know, they need to step down because, you know, myself, this is a lack of public trust. And, you know, it's not just, you know, I understand that Director Nguyen is a new member, but, you know, being twice censored in 8 months and then having these other issues come up, and, you know, going through last week's reading about, you know, issues of, you know, if there were, you know, assault or batteries, when you should be talking about fire issues, especially after, you know, there's more information covered on that than there was on the Star Fire. And, you know, these are important issues. These are life and death issues, because I live in the canyon. We have one egress and point through the canyon. And, you know, this is what you guys need to be dealing with, not personnel matters within the board. So, you know, I either ask that this is fully investigated and dealt with in the near future, or that Director Nguyen step down. Or, I'm sorry, Director Nguyen, Williams. Thank you guys for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you. Do we have any other requests to speak?
Are we allowed to respond? Nope.
No. Do we have any other requests to speak? Seeing none, we'll
Yeah.
move on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Liaison reports? No? Okay. Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams. You're out of order. Please take your seat.
Suzette Dang, San Bernardino County, 4th District.
Good evening, President DeMonico, board members, chief, staff, and audience members. Suzette Deng with 4th District County Supervisor Kurt Hagman's office. I do have 2 community events coming up. We'd like to invite the public to. First one is Saturday, October 26th, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. This is a free shredding event for the community, and this will be in the city of Chino, Chino City Hall parking lot, to be exact. And we're partnering with the Chino Police Department as well. So come on down with your documents, and you can actually see them get shredded right in front of your eyes. So you can be rest assured that it has been taken care of. And we are limiting to 5 boxes. Second event coming up, we're very excited about this. This is our Veteran Claims event coming up on November 14th between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And this will be at our district office right down the street, 14010 City Center Drive in Chino Hills. And we ask the veterans to bring your DD Form 214. And we will help, the county veteran services officers will be there to help you with your claims, existing claims, new claims, any questions. And Supervisor Hagman will be serving lunch. So come join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Yeah, nothing. Yeah.
Councilman Lucio? Nothing to report. Nothing to report. Thank you. And James from the. Mr. James Knopf from the school board?
Good evening. I'd like to thank our fire district leaders. I'd like to thank especially Fire Chief Tim. I knew you as a parent a while back, but attending this morning's event on 9/11, it really brought us all of us together to celebrate our greatness of our first responders. And I couldn't believe that it was 18 years already that it had happened. And it tells you something for us as we get older. Our enemies are out there, not within us. So my expectation is that we work together well as an adults for the sake of our community and especially the sake of our children. Number one, occupation that our children has the most respect is firefighters. And that's the truth. I have walked my campuses, and that's what they told me. So again, I'd like to pray for those families who lost their loved ones for 9/11, but also like to thank our great leadership under our chief Tim. Matter of fact, I had people ask me to tell you that we need you here for a long time, because throughout the experiences in this community, people are saying that you were the best chief that we had in fire board. So thank you. And I'd like to thank our friends. I know each one of you, all 5, matter of fact. I love you guys dearly. And you guys in my prayers. And keep up with good work. Thank you.
Thank you, James. We don't have any other items, that's okay, we'll move on. Okay, next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. And I'd like to ask the board if there's anything they'd like to pull on the consent calendar. Seeing none, I'd like to open up this public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment or pull anything on our consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for any further board comment or and ask for a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. New business.
Alleged violation of board policies. Purpose is for the Board of Directors to discuss alleged violation of board policy and procedures for Board of Directors by Director Williams and take action as deemed appropriate. Report by Fire Chief Tim Shackelford.
President DeMonico, members of the board, good evening. As fire chief, one of my fundamental responsibilities is ensuring that district personnel are provided a professional, safe work environment where they are treated fairly and appropriately. Additionally, I have a responsibility to protect the district from any unnecessary liability. During the open session portion of board meetings, Director Williams has made disparaging remarks about staff. In my opinion, his comments are unprofessional, inappropriate, and likely a violation of board policies. It is recommended that the Board of Directors discuss alleged violations of board policy and procedures for Board of Directors by Director Williams and take action as deemed appropriate.
Thank you, Chief. Before I open this up to public comment, this was brought forward by a director, and I'd like to ask Director Evanger if she'd like to add anything to the staff report before I open it up to public comment.
I do want to add something, because these violations continue and continue against staff, the chief, and even other board members. And I just want to cite some board policy before we get started. So our policy title is Members of the Board of Directors, and I'm going to be reading 1070.2. Directors shall at all times conduct themselves with a courtesy to each other, to staff and members of the audience present during board meetings. The second one I'm going to read, and it's under board meeting conduct, and I'm going to read policy 2030.2 and under B1. And this is in regards to, we've had a board member, and I'm going to say Director Williams has cited that members of our staff aren't capable of doing their job, and I want to read here, it says, except as part of a formal performance evaluation process that has been properly noticed in accordance with the Brown Act, no oral presentation by any board member shall include charges or complaints against any district employee, regardless of whether or not the employee is identified in the presentation by name or by another reference, which tends to identify such persons. All charges and complaints against employees shall be resolved at the lowest possible administration level and with a method for resolution of complaints be logical and systematic. The last meeting, I was very, very disheartened with the comments that Director Williams made against our clerk of the board, and this has been continuing against our clerk of the board. And I'm not sure if he's had a chance to read this policy, but I'm citing it. I want it for the record right now, and I'll let everyone comment, and then I'll come back because I have a few other things. So, Would you like a copy of this? I'll be happy. We all should have read it. We should know. So all charges and complaints against employees shall be resolved at the lowest possible administration level, and the method for resolution of complaints be logical and systematic. Bringing them here in front of the public, talking about our employees with disparaging comments is not what our board policy speaks. So it's in your board policy on the, it's on our website.
I wanted a copy of
Yeah.
it. I'll take a copy of it.
At this time, I'd like to open this up for public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for board comment.
Okay,
I've got a statement.
so,
Okay, if you want to go first, go ahead, Mr. Williams.
If there's other statements, I'd like to go the last if I could.
You asked to go, so if you do
Okay.
want.
It's going to be a little long. It's a written statement that I have here. So you can stop me at 5 minutes, and then somebody else can speak, but I do get to finish. You understand that, right? It's not a deal where 5 minutes and you're out.
Williams, it's
Do you
your turn.
understand
It's-
that?
Mr. Williams, you have the floor. It's your turn to speak. Please speak.
I just don't want to have any more problems.
Don't argue, just speak.
Okay. I have some comments to make in response to what Tim has said here tonight. You send me a letter saying how I asked you for copies right before a board meeting. Then you quote the exact part from the minutes where I discussed those copies at the board meeting, yet you say the copies were not for the board business. It's concerning that our chief doesn't seem to see the obvious flaw
Williams,
in
is
his
this-
logic.
Is this your agenda item, or is this the agenda item we're on right now? Which one?
We're talking just about what we're on.
There's another agenda
the-
item to address your concerns with the copies.
No, this is.
You want to address that, you want to talk now about the item we have on
Would
the
you
agenda?
please quit interrupting
Will you-
me?
Will you listen, will you
Can you
please?
please be a little bit courteous?
We're always courteous now. Are you going to address this agenda item, or are you addressing your agenda item? That's all I'm asking you.
I'm addressing the item that's before the board.
Okay, there's nothing about copies on this item. Go ahead.
Hold on, hold on. Are we talking about the letter of August 14th, 2019? What are we talking about?
We're talking about the staff report that was just given.
Talking about what Director Evinger was talking about. You making disparaging comments about staff.
And board policy
And board
violations.
policy violation. After we're done with this, then there's the second board item
Which is what?
that you asked to discuss a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay. So
So all we're talking about now is
there was a
We're
letter
talking
sent.
about agenda item number 11.
alleged violation.
Okay, there was a letter sent to me about making copies.
That's not on this item.
That's not on this agenda item.
Okay, what my thing states is it says it's for the Board of Directors to discuss alleged violation of board policy and procedures for Board of Directors by Director Williams and take action as deemed appropriate. Now, there's nothing specific there, so it's a violation of board policy in general.
It's a violation of board policies, and Director Evinger just mentioned some of those violations of board policies. And that's what we're discussing, is your violation of board policies.
Okay,
And
that's
you have the right to
exactly
respond,
right.
and you have the right to respond to the violation of board policies. What we're
Okay.
in here does it talk about 2 copies?
No.
Does it talk about your previous employment, or all those other things you keep bringing up? This is focused on your violation of board policies, and would you like to respond to those?
This is a document from the fire chief about a violation of board policies by me. So if we're talking about board policies, then I fit in.
If you'd like to talk about the board policies you violated that's in that letter, go ahead.
Because it talks about me asking Chief Shackelford for some copies before a meeting. And he talks about board policy 1010.8 states that board members shall not use district resources for personal or political purposes. And so we're talking about board policy. And
It's a
the,
board policy.
and the agenda is not specific. So therefore, I have every right to talk about a stated alleged violation of board policy. And I do have a letter here addressing that and other board policies that you guys are alleging me to.
If you'd like to go ahead and list all the board policies you violated, go ahead.
Well, that's the only one that I'm going to address right now, allegedly. So I'd like to read this letter, and I'll just carry on, okay? Thank you. I have a few comments to make in response to what Tim has said here tonight. He has sent me a letter where I asked for copies right before a board meeting. Then he quotes the exact part from the minutes where I discussed those copies at the board meeting. Yet you say the copies were not for the board business. It's concerning that our chief doesn't seem to see the obvious flaw in his logic. He doesn't seem to have basic comprehension skills or just plain common sense. Now you're accusing me of violating board policy, correct? And you sent this letter on district letterhead, correct? Let me just read you board policy. Board policy 1025.2 states, it is the president's assigned responsibility to correspond with persons or organizations when it is appropriate to represent adopted district policy. Did I miss the meeting where Tim was elected to the president of the board? That same board policy also states correspondence expressing a district position on policy issues shall require board action. It also states issues of a controversial or sensitive nature should always first be placed on the board agenda for discussion by the board of directors. Your letter was not placed on the agenda and approved by the board before you sent it, was it? No, it wasn't. So it was actually you that violated board policy. Let me ask you this, Tim. Did you draft this letter, or did somebody draft it for you? You don't want to answer?
This is not an inquisition. Please continue.
Let me tell you what my biggest concern is. My biggest concern is that we have an incompetent chief whose priorities are misaligned that is putting the public at risk. The Forrest family lost their multi-million-dollar residence in the Star Fire. In the wake of that fire, there are significant questions about the handling of that incident, the department's response, the public safety in general. But our chief is choosing to spend his time and violate policy trying to come after me over photocopies for a board meeting. This is pretty damning evidence that you are completely tone deaf and that your priorities are completely misaligned. Sadly, it is clear that public safety is not a top priority for you. I'm not just sitting here playing Monday morning quarterback. At the May 30th special meeting, I stated that I was concerned about our chief's ability to handle a major incident, and the Star Fire showed that those concerns were well-founded. Less than 2 months after I expressed that concern, there was a major incident, and he completely failed, and the family lost their home as a result. Except for losing a family member, there is probably no greater loss than someone losing their home. I saw clips on the Channel 7 News of the family members whose home was burned. They said, and I'm quoting here, "We called 911 again. It took them over 10 minutes from the time we called 911. Another family member interviewed said, again, I'm quoting, "It took forever," and she emphasized forever.
Excuse
Hey,
What's this have
I'm
to do?
talking here.
What's this have to do with your violating board policies?
They
Bring
were
it-
right around
bring
the
it
corner.
back- Bring it back to the agenda item, please.
They were right around the corner. Nobody else on fire. They're putting out weeds and my house is burning. This is where we are right now.
Can we have a quick recess, please?
Yeah, we're gonna recess real quick. Thank you.
See if I can figure this out. I saw clips on the Channel 7 News of the family members whose homes burned. They said, and I'm quoting here, "We called 911 again. It took them over 10 minutes from the time we called 911. Another family member interviewed said, again, I'm quoting, "It took forever," and she emphasized forever. They were right around the corner, nobody else on fire. That's putting out weeds. They're putting out weeds and my house is burning. This is where we are right now. The loss of that residence was pure incompetence of leadership and the failure of this chief to ensure that our guys had proper training. In my 33 years as a firefighter in this district, we never lost a structure to a grass fire while I was on duty. I know the area where the Star Fire was. I know what the brush was like. That house should not have burned, and meanwhile, our chief worries about photocopies. To make matters worse, our chief has publicly blamed the homeowner for the loss of their home, engaging in a disgusting display of victim blaming. We need an independent investigation to find out what happened at that fire and to find out if the loss of the residents was avoidable and what training our firefighters need to prevent such tragedies in the future. I would like to place that on the agenda for next meeting. If we have money to investigate whether I said things the chief didn't like, surely we should have money to investigate and learn from a major incident, unless, of course, the board is just trying to cover for the chief's incompetence. Our guys are inadequately trained for firefighting because our leadership are all paramedics first and firefighting is a distant second. But instead of making sure our firefighters are adequately trained in firefighting, to replace the institutional knowledge that has been lost as the older guys retire, our chief is worried about photocopies. The question the Star Fire raises about response times is particularly concerning. It's especially concerning considering we were not getting data on the number of calls and response times for months leading up to and including the time of the Star Fire. We weren't getting that information for 6 months, and it wasn't a priority for the chief until I brought it up at the July meeting, a couple weeks before the Star Fire. Then, when I asked for an update on those reports to be placed on the August agenda, we miraculously had the reports. However, I'm not sure that the data is even accurate. I'll tell you what else is concerning. The chief cited a lack of resources in fighting that fire. But when I look at the budget that the chief just submitted to this board for approval a couple months ago, there has been absolutely no increase in safety personnel for years, while we've seen exponential growth in administrative staff. Is that making the public safer? No, it's not. How much of the chief's time and department's resources has he spent on things like worrying about photocopies and taking it upon himself to arrange for expensive and unnecessary security screening for these meetings? You're a disgrace to this department and a disgrace to this community. And every day you remain as chief, your incompetent leadership puts the residents of the community at risk. The board can censure me again over photocopies or pass a motion saying what a great guy you are to try and convince the public you're not incompetent or do whatever. It's not going to change reality. You're in over your head, and your incompetence is becoming increasingly apparent to everyone. I know it, the other board members should know it, and you knew it too. That's why you feel a need to send an email to the board to try and explain yourself and claim you were misquoted every time there's a newspaper article spotlighting your incompetence. The real question is, how bad do the consequences of your incompetence have to get before the board does something about it? As for me, I'm going to speak out on behalf of the citizens. Public safety is obviously low on our chief's priority list, but not mine. If you think this ridiculous crap about photocopies is going to silence me and keep me from shining a spotlight on how inept you are, you're even more incompetent than I thought. Finally, you don't seem to understand our roles here, so I'm going to explain them to you. I was elected by the citizens to provide oversight as a member of this board. You are an appointee of this board. I do not answer to you, and I am not your subordinate. Do you understand that? Don't ever send me another letter like this one commanding me or telling me what I can or cannot do. Got it?
Are you done?
I'm finished.
Can I
Who
go,
would
please?
like to, who would like to?
I
say-
do.
Okay, go ahead.
Except as part of a formal performance evaluation that has been properly noticed in accordance with the Brown Act, no oral presentation by any board member shall include charges or complaints against any district employee, regardless of whether it is not the employee, whether or not the employee is identified in the presentation by name or any other reference. Are we falling to deaf ears? You don't care about board policy, Director Williams? You have sat here and continued to attack the chief. You said he's incompetent, which I find is quite funny that you can call someone incompetent when you can't even use a computer. And I apologize for going to that level, but this is getting ridiculous. I mean, how dare you? How dare you? You say if you were a competent retired firefighter, you would understand what goes into the undertaking of an incident like we had. How dare you? How dare you? And, going back to those papers that you were saying, you falsified, you told them that it was papers for our board meeting, and you lied. You're the one who lied to them. You just wanted to see if they would make you copies or not. And I'm just so disgusted with what's going on here. You continue to call the chief a liar. You tell him he doesn't care about this district. He works extremely hard. Chief, I apologize for the comments that has been made to you and for the violations of board policy to you. And you have an obligation to your staff to protect them. And if that means calling us board members out at any time, then you need to do that. So be it. So be it. Just like you call me out if I'm in violation and I am not treating our employees the way they should. So I'm going to stop at that right now and someone else go.
You want me to go?
Sure.
I come here hoping to give you the benefit of the doubt every single time. I truly do, man. And I cannot believe, it's astounding to me that you would speak like this to the chief and to the staff. It's astounding to me that you would speak about our fire district this way. It's sad, is what it is. But it's shocking, it's astounding, it's wrong. On so many levels, it's wrong. It's a violation of board policy. I think you really need to take a hard look at what you're doing here, because this is destructive. This is not leading us forward. This is truly just shocking and appalling. Chief Shackelford, my personal opinion is you're doing a fantastic job. You are a fantastic leader to this organization. I hope you have a thick skin and can let this, brush off. You don't deserve to be called these names at all. You certainly don't, you don't deserve any of this. So I'm sorry for that personally. I wish that there was something I could do to change that. But I want you to know, and I want your staff to know, that and the public to know that you have my full confidence. And I appreciate what you do every day.
Trying to get back to agenda item 11, I guess the point, to be made here is, Mr. Williams, you're making the case for exactly what we're attempting to discuss here. Clearly, policy has no meaning to you. Following the rules or adhering to them has absolutely no meaning to you. This is a personal vendetta. You have personally attacked virtually everybody in this department, it seems, certainly the chief and other staff members. And I agree with the comments that have been made so far, Chief. I applaud you for the job you do, for the job your staff does, for the staff that you've assembled around you. I think that is a sign of a strong and good leader. When you look at the people who was around that person, I think we've got a great department, and we've got a leader, and we've got a department that cares. To suggest, to outright state that we are not properly trained, that our chief is incompetent, that he's a disgrace, that he's in over his head, that the public safety is not as concerned, it's appalling to even suggest these things. There's no basis in reality. There's no facts. There's no proof. There's nothing other than this personal vendetta that's going on here. The chief at our previous meeting, you detailed what happened during the Star Fire, the complexity of it, the timeline of it. It was an extremely detailed report. There was no comments by Director Williams at that point suggesting anything was amiss. Chief, you laid it out there. Here's what happened. Here's when it happened. There's nothing. Here's the facts. Here's what happened. Director Williams mentions the budget. This is a budget that you had every opportunity to review. There was no comments at the time. You approved it, and yet now there's a problem with it. It just continues to go on. So again, trying to get back to agenda item 11, I think the issue is, after we've all had a chance to talk here, so what's the next step? So with that, I would yield.
We're here to talk about the board policies you violated, Mr. Williams. But you constantly bring up board policies that you say everybody else violates. I think you need to take a look in the mirror. And as far as the chief goes, I think we have a tremendous chief. I think he does an outstanding job. I think staff is outstanding. And I think this district is outstanding. But you somehow want to make a mockery of this district. You want to make it a sideshow. It's all about you. Everything's about you. And you sat right here and you've told us, I'm not going to follow the policies, I'm not going to follow the censures, I'm not going to do that. But yet you sit there and you expect us to do that. And we're here to talk about you and the violation of your policies. You proved it again tonight. You did it. You do it over and over and over. And I think you should look in the mirror, because when you point fingers at everybody else, there's 4 fingers pointing right back at you. And this is ridiculous that we're here doing this again. I don't know how many times we've done this. You've been on a board now, what, for 9 months?
10.
And 10 months? Okay, 10. And how many times are we sitting here doing this stuff?
10.
How many times have you come in here and berated the chief, berated staff, called everybody else names, called me names, called other board members names? And quite frankly, you talk about previous chiefs that you don't like. Apparently, you don't like fire chiefs at all. So that's the message I'm getting, is it doesn't matter who's here, you don't like them. You have gone on record and you've talked about how people don't get you, they don't understand you, and you're always the victim. Again, look in the mirror. Why is that? Maybe you need to do something about yourself. So, but Chief, I do want to tell you that you've got my total support. I think you do a wonderful job. I think this district does a wonderful job. I applaud this district. I'm proud of this district. I'm proud of every employee here. And and if somebody wants to sit up here and try and make a mockery of the district, I want you to know that's not me. I love you guys, and I believe 100% in everything you all do. Chief, everything that you do, staff, everything that you do. With that being said, I'd like to know if there's any motion to, that any board member would like to move forward with this.
I'm not sure so Leo, I'm going to be looking to you again. I unfortunately believe we're back in a situation, it doesn't seem to do any good, but I think it at least sends a message that as a board, we care, we're concerned, and we're attempting to address the problem, and I believe we need to bring back another censure based on the issues that have been raised, the violations of board policy that have been identified and were very evident in the presentation that Director Williams made. And I would suggest that we bring a motion of censure back to this board for consideration.
And can I make an amendment to that motion to include any of the battery that he's caused? I'm not the only one he's caused battery on, and I want to make sure that he does not cause battery on any employee here. So I'd like that included in censure.
I'd like to know who else I've caused battery on.
So that would be a motion.
I have a right to know.
We have a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What was the question about?
Bringing back a motion of censure, a third
Oh,
censure.
a
on you.
third censure. Oh, okay. That's got to be a record.
Was
It is, the
was it
second
clear
one was a
enough?
record.
Yes.
Thank you.
So did you vote or are you abstaining?
I'm abstaining. I didn't get to speak.
Motion passes.
You didn't ask me if
4-0.
I'd like to speak, Mr. President.
We've already voted. We're
Well,
moving on to item
yeah, I
number
appreciate
12.
the opportunity to have gotten to speak.
You had the opportunity to speak.
No,
You
I
spoke
didn't.
For 10 minutes. We're moving on.
When you
We're moving
said,
on
is
to-
there
we're
anybody
moving
that
on
would
to-
like to make any
We're
comments?
moving on to agenda item 12.
I didn't get to make a comment.
Item number 12, request by Director Williams for items to be addressed. Purpose is for the Board of Directors to receive an update on items requested by Director Williams to be addressed. Report by Fire Chief Tim Shackelford.
President DeMonico, members of the board, good evening once again. As a follow-up to discussion that occurred at the August 14th, 2019 Board of Directors meeting, I sent the following email on Thursday, August 15th, 2019 at 10:54 a.m. Director Williams, please send me via email the document that you wish to show on the screen at the September meeting. If you are unable to email the document, you can drop it off for me at the front counter administration. Once I have the document, I will begin the process of developing the staff report, and I will contact you if I have any questions. I understand that you want to meet with me, but as this is a board item, my role is simply to get the document, create the report, and include it on the agenda, so I do not see the need to meet. If there's something that I'm missing with that and you feel it is imperative to meet about this topic, please let me know. Thank you. I did not receive a reply to my email. During the afternoon of Friday, August 30th, 2019, Director Williams made contact with the community risk reduction staff at the front counter here at Fire Administration. As I was unaware that Director Williams would be coming in on that date, the interaction with him was not recorded as mandated by the directives in the resolution of censure. Director Williams left a document for me. The first 2 pages were handwritten, and the second 2 were copies of typewritten documents. Within the first 2 pages, there are a number of requests made by Director Williams. I'd like to show the document on the screen. The first item in the email to him read, on Friday, September 6, 2019, I sent the following email to myself and blind copied the Board of Directors. I sent this email to myself and had blind copied the Board of Directors with the intent of doing so to prevent a potential Brown Act issue with a reply to all. Copies of this email and the attachments will be available for the public at the upcoming board meeting. Director Williams, I'm in receipt of your letter, scanned copy attached, dated August 30th, 2019. Below, you will find a typewritten version of what you provided, quoted in bold italics, and my response and/or additions are in blue. And his letter starts, I would like to address or have addressed the following items in the board meeting on 9/11/19. I would like to have the pay for the month of July stated for each member and what the pay is for. My response to him, PDF of board invoices from January 2019 through July 2019 is attached. The second item that he's requesting, I would also like the year-to-date totals of each board member stated to July 31st, 19. My response, PDF of board invoices from January 2019 through July 2019 is attached. Third item, I would like each member to state why I'm being censured and how long they feel it should last. In my response to him, I believe that this has been addressed, and I suggest that you refer to the minutes of the previous meetings where this topic has been discussed. The fourth item, I would like to talk about the competency of the IT man of the department. The fact that he could not bring up the requested material at the last meeting is concerning to me. My response to him: during the August board meeting, you made a request to show the video of the July 10th board meeting, and it was my decision that we did not have the capability to do so on such short notice. My decision had nothing to do with the competency or capability of IT staff. Furthermore, and even more importantly, the board of directors do not have any supervisory responsibilities for staff other than the fire chief and legal counsel. If board members have job performance related concerns regarding district personnel, they need to bring those concerns to my attention. The fifth item: I'm concerned about your statements about me talking at the administration when I came in to file some papers or sign something, specifically why you think you have a right to stop me from exercising my First Amendment rights. I would like your feelings about this and also our attorney's thoughts about this. My response to him: with regard to your allegation that I'm attempting to stop you from exercising your First Amendment rights, neither the district, the board of directors staff, including myself, are stopping you from exercising your First Amendment rights. The board's censures of you do not stop you from communicating with district staff. Instead, you simply have to make arrangements with me in order to make contact with district personnel or visit district facilities. And there must be a witness to any such contacts, and that they must be recorded. Those limitations on your access to district staff do not stop you from exercising your First Amendment rights. Instead, they are reasonable and narrowly drawn limitations that are the consequence of your inappropriate interactions with district staff. They are designed to protect the district from liability that your conduct, if left unchecked, will lead to. Sixth, his sixth request: I would still like to have the video of me going behind John DeMonico, and also the part at the last meeting where you commented on me speaking at admin when I came in to sign the paper. My email response provided two links. The first was to the July 10th, 2019 Board of Directors meeting, and the second was the link to the August 14th, 2019 Board of Directors meeting. Item 7, and last, I am still asking for help and will continue to ask for help on computer usage. My helpers weren't able to help me today, hence the written letter you see. My response: this item was discussed in detail at the August Board of Directors meeting, therefore I believe it has been addressed. And 8, I have also attached the 2 copies I asked the clerk of the board to make. I would like them put up on the screen in the boardroom so I can comment on them at the meeting. I need to do this as a citizen because of the content of the papers. In my response to him: staff will be prepared to show the documents on the screen during the board meeting. Prior to reading the recommendation, I would like to ask legal counsel to provide some information on criteria utilized for determining the purpose of a document.
Members of the board, I think there's been some discussion at previous board meetings, one of which I believe I was not present. My colleague Isaac Rosen was there, and he, I believe, explained to the board the difference between when a document is a personal document and when it's a public document. I think there's been some confusion on the part of Board Member Williams in terms of how a document that is otherwise personal might eventually become public. And it doesn't really have to do with what the content of the document is. Instead, it has to do with how the document is used. So a document could be, a document that, for instance, was previously provided by the district to an individual board member as part of their previous employment. If those documents are being provided, for instance, to the clerk of the board for purpose of furthering that board member's personal case against the district, that would make those documents personal in nature, and the request to photocopy those documents would be personal in nature, as opposed to if those documents were being provided for purposes of providing the documents to the board for a board meeting. And so I just want to reiterate to the board and all of the board that it's not so much the content of the documents, it's what the purpose of their use that dictates whether something is personal or public.
Thank you, and I will show the documents as requested by Director Williams. Recommendation: it is recommended that the Board of Directors receive an update on items requested by Director Williams to be addressed and receive and file or provide direction to staff. That concludes my report.
Are we ready for comment yet?
I think everybody should have a chance to look at the documents. Well, how about we open it up to public comment first? Anybody from the public like to comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for board comments. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Na?
I have a comment as a public. Looking at these documents and all that, and accusations flying over our Chino Valley Fire District, I'm appalled, because I've been here for a while. I have watched our firefighters saving our students' lives day and night. Our leadership here works so much in training and think about our welfare for many, many years. So I do not see what one person sees. I know Mr. Williams is my friend. He always smiles at me, I smile back. But this is a public meeting to discuss and celebrate the greatness of Chino Valley Fire District. The lady here taking pictures, she was a lifesaver a couple years ago. We had visitors from home place to show how great our fire district was. It was in the newspaper too. So, I mean, this is a great place. And I'm looking at these documents, and this one has nothing to do with our fire district. I believe each individually, you guys are adults over 18 years old, and you have great duty and great talents that you could serve the public. And the reason I wasn't here for so many times, because I had no concern whatsoever with the fire district and our employees. Great people. We love you so much. Appreciate you every day. So are our parents. Our parents, how many are there? Thousands of parents. We love our fire district. We love our leaders. Again, I said about Chief Tim. He really cares about our community here. So let's put a personal agenda set aside. I have spoken with many youth. They often get in disagreements and even some fights. And I tell them, make it up. It's not a big deal. In 50 years from now, nothing really matters. And we're all over 18 years old. We shouldn't be discussing this. No, time wasted. I respect each one of you as my brothers and sisters. And again, appreciate everyone, whether they're staff members, whether they're secretaries, whether they're chiefs. They're doing a great job here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knott. Have any other requests to speak? Mr. Lucio. Councilman.
My name's Mark Lucio. I'm a representative for the city of Chino. I'm a Chino City Council member. I'm also a lieutenant with the LA County Sheriff's Department. I can tell you, I'm currently the lead for a grant that we have at Target Narcan. And I was talking to some of our federal partners as well as some other agencies, and every time I talk to them, they communicate that they've spoken to Chino Valley Fire. They always have the utmost respect for them. They always indicate what a great department it is. But I'm really disappointed being a representative for one of the contract cities that supports this department to see the level of fighting that is occurring. As a supervisor, I can tell you that it is against human resources policy for me to verbally reprimand a subordinate of mine, especially in front of his subordinates. I don't understand how that is occurring here. If I had a problem with our police chief, if I had a problem with our city manager, that would be something I would be documenting and bringing up during his evaluation during closed session, whether or not we should, one, extend his contract or terminate his contract. But it would not be something that I would open up and talk about openly in front of his subordinates or in front of the community, especially when we know it's not only the people that are here, but the people that's being videotaped disappointed that we, as a city, has to deal with this, when this is not something we should be wasting our time. We fund this department, 50% of of the funding that comes to this department is from our city. And to see what it's gotten is very disappointing. And I can only ask that we start moving forward from this. I don't know, fire chief, like some of you may know him. His kids went to school with my kids, and there was never any issues that anybody had ever, and we're talking from a public, not from him being a fire chief, but from him being a father, that ever anybody said anything negative about this man. And then when I came here as a city council member, no one's ever said anything negative about this man as a fire chief. And in the professional life, as a lieutenant from the department, have I ever heard anything negative about this department? But when I come here and I listen to these meetings, that's all I hear is how terrible this department is, which is, I don't understand it, I can't comprehend it. Because it's, to come from a director, talking about his department that he represents, which is not anything that I've ever heard from anybody outside of this. It's just very disappointing. And I really hope, and I'll go back and talk to my counterparts, but this is something that if you don't sit here and address it, maybe we're gonna have to do something to see if we can help to address this, because this is a waste of our money. You guys should be dealing with business and not this personal agenda. This is something you guys need to move on. If there's a disagreement, move on with your disagreement. But this is ridiculous to sit here and dwell on this. Every meeting I've attended, this has come up. This is the same thing over and over. Quite frankly, I'm getting tired of listening to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any other requests to speak? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Does any member of this board wish to speak? Mr. Williams, you brought this up.
I'm only allowed to speak about this, is that correct? I'm not allowed to address the
You're allowed to-
councilman's concerns?
You're allowed to address the agenda item. We're not allowed to address anything that's not on the agenda.
Okay, so the councilman's concerns I can't address. I'm sorry, sir. I'll address them at my time to speak. The reason that I asked that these be brought up is there were two copies that started all this problem. And these are the two copies that started the problems right here. I asked the clerk of the board to make copies of these because I had spoken with a counselor at the request of the fire district, and I asked for the copies to be made. And when I asked her to make them, she said, I can't make personal copies. And I said, well, sometimes you might have to do something like that. And what the deal is if you can see this first paper here, it's my statement. Does anybody see anything personal on there? All I see is government code relating to employees. And there's nothing personal in there. The thing that's relevant that I wanted to give to the fellow was the one that says 21164. Notwithstanding any other provision of this article, the retirement for disability of a local safety member, other than a school safety member, shall not be effective without the member's consent earlier than the date upon which leave of absence without loss of salary under section 4850 of the Labor Code because of the disability terminates, or earlier, or the earlier date during the leave as of which the disability is permanent and stationary as found by the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board. And of course, that means the workers' compensation judge. And that states only, of course, that the workers' comp judge has a right to do that. And then on the other one, this was the decision from the workers' comp judge. And this was the part that I wasn't sure I could talk about, but I understand I can talk about it because it was sent to the CalPERS. And I had informed them that I needed to be reinstated because I was never legally retired. And they sent it to the fire department and agreed at that time. And you can see their date stamp and stuff up at the top. And it was put in my file. In my file, now it is in my file, and if there is something that has a question about it or something, it being in the department file, it is allowed to be copied. And that is, give me just a second here, and I'll tell you what the statute is on that. Labor Code, Section 1198.5. So when I asked for a copy of this, it was in my file, and at the most, I might have had to pay for it, 25 cents or something like that. But I was entitled to have a copy of this made, because it would have come out of my file. And the clerk of the board refused to do that and caused, as you see, and everybody is aware, problem after problem after problem. And this started it. We don't need to go through everything that it caused. I mean, everybody talks about how much trouble there is and everything. And I'm sorry about that. I truly am. But when things happen that I can't talk about, I mean, right now, I can talk about it at the end when I make my comments. But I just wanted everybody to know what this was about. And the part that, of course, was relevant to me, I don't know if I should state this or not, but it is, it says applicant had additional treatment subsequent to September 10th, 2002. And anyway, the judge talks about the fact that I wasn't permanent and stationary until January 14th, 2003. And he says my official retirement was on, September 11th or something like that. And the part that to me is really relevant is it says, this court has no jurisdiction to alter or modify applicant's retirement date. He couldn't do it. He didn't say, if you look up above, right toward the top there where it says apportionment, it says apportionment to psyche is moot. There is no something of, let me see what it says here. It says no evidence of apportionment, to skin or ears, but the psyche is moot. In other words, it doesn't matter. If he had felt that the retirement didn't need to be changed, he would have says, changing the retirement is moot. All he said is, it needs to be changed, but he couldn't do it. And that's what I was emphasizing and trying to make clear to the person that was talking to me from the fire district. So that's the reason I wanted to bring these up. But I did have a right to ask for these copies, even though the clerk of the board said I did not. Clearly, the left one is not personal. The other one was out of my file, and that's all I'd like to say. And so all the problems that have been caused by these two copies are hinged on the fact that I had a right to have them copied. And so everything went bad. That's all I can say. And I'm going to say this. For that, I'm very sorry. I'm sorry for everything that happened. I would love to have everything just go away and fall into the group and all that. But I have something to say, at my time on the board. I can't say it right now. But I apologize to these members for all this, and I apologize to the public for all this. But hopefully, it'll go away some point in time. Thank you very much.
Are you done?
I'm finished.
Director Krieger.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, I would like to thank you very much for showing us what these two pieces of paper were about. It's good to actually see what they are, so I appreciate your clarity on that. And I'll get to that in a moment. When you were first elected, we had a board meeting with the leadership of the department over at McCoy's Equestrian Center. And it was there that you engaged our consultant, Mr. Messina, and you shared out loud in the group that you wanted to share your documents with him. And at that time, I know I made it very clear, and other people made it very clear to you, that his role with us is in a leadership capacity, not of any consultant regarding work comp, employee issues, retirement. He has no capacity with us at that. And it was made very clear to you that anything you gave to him would be personal in nature and outside the scope of his role as a consultant for us for leadership services. It was made very clear in that meeting. You now have shown us these 2 pages that clearly state this is personal in nature. This has nothing to do with your capacity as a board member or the fire district as a whole. These have nothing to do with your role as a director. Our clerk was entirely correct in refusing to make these copies for you because this is of a personal nature that has nothing to do with you being a board member. Nothing at all. This has nothing to do with you being a board member. So she was absolutely correct. The past 9 or 10 months is, as Councilmember Lucio has stated, has been a utterly and complete distraction, a complete waste of time, of resources, of money. You continue to harbor stuff from the past of a personal nature that has nothing to do with your capacity as a board member and moving this department forward. Nothing at all. And I simply don't understand why you keep coming back to the past, bringing up past chiefs, disparaging our current chief. You bring up grievances from 10 or 20 years ago that have no bearing on your role as a board member today. None at all. This has nothing to do with the fire district today, with the board today, or with any employee today. This has to do with you personally, which has no bearing on you being a director. It's entirely personal. I'm going to ask again, Mr. Williams, please, let's stop this, get focused on moving the department forward. I want you to be concerned about today's fire district and where we're headed in the future in a positive direction. I don't know if you're capable of that. I would love to be able to walk in here and say, it's time to remove your censures. You obviously want this department to move forward in a positive light. You want to be a productive member when you have not demonstrated at all what your role should be. You constantly bring up the past. I ask that you concentrate on the future of this district, starting right now today. Concentrate on the future.
And remove the censures and let's go
I
ahead.
absolutely would love to do that if you can demonstrate and show me that that is what your focus is. I would love to no longer hear about this. I would absolutely love to. With that, I'm done. Thank you.
I don't think there's a whole lot that we can say. It just is, it's just abundantly clear this is not going to stop. It's not going to go away. It continues, from my perspective, the comments, the accusations that continue to prove the point of this is some personal vendetta. This is some personal issue. This is not district business. It's not out of a concern to duty or responsibility to this district. it's reckless, it's demeaning, it's damaging to this district. There just doesn't seem to be really a concern for this district or doing or fulfilling the role here of a board member by you, Director Williams. I don't think there's anything else to be said. It doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter what anybody says. You're just going to continue to go and raise the same things over and over, disregard fact, disregard what really has happened, and distort the truth, distort the situation for whatever personal reason that you might have. So that would be it.
Okay. And I want to apologize to the public because, yeah, we have been dealing with some terrible, embarrassing items. And I'm ashamed that we're having to conduct these types of conversations instead of business for the district. Director Williams, your actions are not what the public elected you to do. Your obvious self-serving contempt for this department, its employees and leadership, the fire chief, and the board is counterproductive, distracting, a downright nuisance. I'm glad that you showed those too, because I agree with everything that Director Krieger had to say about that. I honestly feel you misled the voters, and you brought up the voters today in saying that you're going to do what they asked you to do, but you're not. You misled them when you ran for office. Right now, I was a little lost when you brought those up, because I was trying to figure out how these documents related to district business, which they obviously do not. I was trying to figure out the correlation. Also, I was trying to understand if these items, they were requested as a board member, not as a resident, or not as a retired employee. And I believe our legal counsel had explained to, prior to all this, what the intent of the documents were, not necessarily what was on them. So, that's all I'm going to say.
Well, I'm glad I saw them, but I see pages missing up there. Those look like
That's what I had.
the end of a letter. I'd like to see the whole thing. I mean,
I'll be
you know,
glad
I'd
to
like,
show it to you.
I'll tell you what, make a public record. I'll pay for the copies. I'd be more than happy to pay for the copies. You want to make that whole letter public record? I'd love to have the whole letter.
I'd be glad to show it to you, but
I'd love to have
I
I want a
don't
copy.
think I need that
And make a public record,
for the public.
and I will pay for the copies. So
I'll
with
take a
that being
look.
said, all I can say is, Mr. Williams, you keep saying 2 pieces of paper, 2 pieces of paper, and you hold up one meeting and shake up 2 pieces of paper. 2 pieces of paper are worth a couple of pennies. They're nothing. You very well could have diffused this whole thing right in the beginning by saying, okay, I may not be happy with you not making copies, but it's 2 pieces of paper. I'll just go make 2 pieces of paper. Instead, for months now, you have made this a giant issue. And I agree with Director Krieger, Vice President Luth, Director Evansher. We're tired of it. We really want it to go away. We're tired of talking about it. It has nothing to do with district business. And I really would like to see this go away. But I don't think you're going to let it go away, because you never have. So with that being said, we'll just receive a file.
I don't suppose you're gonna let me.
We all get to speak once, and then we move on. We have other business to
Kinda
take
what I
care of.
figured.
It's nothing's changed from other meetings. So with that, well, is there a motion for anything? I think that's a
I don't-
receive and file.
I think it's just a receive and file.
So moving on to item 13.
California Special Districts Association,
My goodness. We can
Uh-oh,
discuss
this-
real business.
Yeah.
committee appointments. Purpose is for the Board of Directors to review and approve. Board member participation in CSDA committees for the year of 2020. President DeMonico, members of the board. CSDA soliciting interest and participation on the 2020 CSDA committees and on expert feedback teams. CSDA has 6 active committees committees and 7 expert feedback teams. President DeMonico currently serves on the Legislative Committee and the Fiscal Committee. Director Ramos Evinger serves on the Professional Development Committee and the Membership Committee. Individuals interested and not currently serving on committees or expert feedback teams must submit interest forms online. Fire District Board members currently assigned to committees wishing to continue serving in 2020 must also submit an interest form online. Board approval is required by CSDA for participation on CSDA committees. Expert feedback teams will be utilized by CSDA legislative staff when a need for feedback arises on a particular policy matter. Team members will not be required to travel, but will receive a handful of emails each month. Below is a list of 2020 committee and expert feedback teams. Listed in your staff report are the 2020 CSDA committees and expert feedback teams. Online interest forms are due to CSDA by 5 p.m. on Friday, October 18th. Notification of selected participants will take place by the end of November 2019. Committee participation begins in January 2020. It is recommended that the Board of Directors review the information pertaining to the CSDA 2020 committees and expert feedback teams and approve fire district representation as appointed by CSDA.
With that, I'd like to request any public comment. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
I'll go ahead and I'll start. If it pleases the board, I would like to continue my participation in the Professional Development Committee as well as the Member Services Committee, unless.
Would you rather be on legislative and put in for that? I wouldn't mind going to education membership.
I
Would you
don't,
like to swap committees this year?
I don't know if I could do that
I-
this year.
I
Are you
wanted,
interested?
well, I'd like to know what the time commitment is
For legislative?
for any of them.
Time commitment, legislative committee time commitment is about, well, you've got 2, 3, there'll be 4 trips to Sacramento, which one is Ledge Days, and probably 4 to 5 webinars, so there's generally a monthly commitment.
Okay. So the travels where I run into the trouble.
There's usually a meeting in February, March, May, and November. Occasionally, there's one in August. But there are webinars in May, June, and August. And there may be one more. I'm just going off the top of my head. But there's also time commitments for when they send things out for responding back from expert feedback or
Yeah, the
there's a
emails,
lot
webinars, stuff like that isn't a concern of mine.
Yeah.
It's the actually leaving town is the concern.
The meetings last usually about 4 hours.
Really?
Yes.
So legislative committee, I'd say no. What has been your experience with time commitment, Director Evinger?
For legislative and professional development, I have like 2 to 3 in person and then like 2 conference just for the, it's about once a quarter, but I do have a lot of other responsibilities where I make contact with members. If we have people who haven't renewed yet, I've kind of taken that on and do that when before with the Professional Development Committee, for speakers, et cetera, what we do is you have to take a lot of time to listen and watch all the speakers.
Yeah.
It's time consuming, usually about maybe 10 to
Okay,
12.
well,
A lot more than just a meeting.
I think you guys answered my question, so I will politely defer myself as being on one of the committees this time around.
However, like election and bylaws, there's other committees as well, and we can find out what their election and bylaws, I believe that's just a,
It's also policy committee or something.
yeah.
I forget what it's
There's,
called, planning.
so there's there's an audit committee, which you might like, a fiscal committee, and we could, you could reach out and find out.
I'll tell you what,
the
I will look at,
commitments.
I'll look at the CSA website and figure it out from there.
Fiscal is one meeting in Sacramento in August
Mm-hmm.
and 2 webinars. It's it's not as demanding as the other ones.
Okay.
Okay, so with that agenda item there, review the pertaining, let me see here. So we need to approve tonight, okay.
Well, then,
Well, we don't need to approve.
No?
We could, if you're interested, you could still, we got till October 18th to
Okay.
submit. So if there's something you'd like to be involved with, you can always submit the paperwork after this meeting. It doesn't have to be
Okay,
tonight. We just have to approve that we authorize participation on the committees.
okay.
I believe. Am I correct, Jeff?
Yes.
I
And-
move that we authorize whoever would like to participate in the
Yeah.
committees to do so.
Apply, but then if you're accepted, as I understand here, then we would bring it back to this board.
Okay.
I don't think it comes back to the board.
It hasn't
what?
typically in the past.
It's in our board policies. that we
Yeah.
approve it.
okay.
Yeah, I think this is the only thing we do, is we approve the participation, and then we let those that wish to participate apply.
And we've been very active with the California Special Districts Association. We hold the accreditations through them, and I feel that our continued participation with them is very valuable and needed.
We're well respected within the CSDA communities, the CSDA itself, so. So with that then, I guess we'll
I'll
look for a motion to approve
I'll motion to
participation.
approve.
please. I got a
Second.
motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
4-0, one abstention. Moving on to item 14, weed abatement.
Resolution number 2019-16, properties declared for weed abatement. Purpose is for the Board of Directors to review, approve, and adopt resolution number 2019-16, identifying properties declared for weed abatement within the fire district. Report by Fire Marshal Danielle Barnes.
President DeMonico, members of the board. Community Risk Reduction has conducted and completed our fall weed abatement inspections. And based on these inspections, we have identified properties throughout the district where a fire hazard or a potential fire hazard exists due to combustible vegetation. Before you is Resolution 2019-16 and a list of properties that have been noted as being non-compliant or having partial clearance. Our office will mail a notice to destroy to all property owners identified on the list after the resolution is approved. A public hearing will be held at the regular Board of Directors meeting on October 9th for property owners wishing to address the board on this matter. Re-inspections will commence on October 10th to determine which properties have complied, who have not complied, and will need to be cleared by our private contractor. All properties failing the re-inspection will be assessed a non-penalty in accordance with our administrative citation process. It is recommended that the Board of Directors review, approve, and adopt Resolution number 2019-16 regarding the declaring and noticing of property owners for weed abatement.
With that, I'd like to ask for any public comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for comment. Questions?
Move to approve.
Have a motion approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0.
Item number 15, Fire Local Amendments and Ordinance Adoption, 2019 California Fire Code and 2018 International Fire Code. Purpose is for the Board of Directors to review, introduce, and conduct a first reading by title only of a proposed ordinance adopting the 2019 California Fire Code based on the 2018 International Fire Code with local amendments. Report by Fire Marshal Danielle Barnes.
President DeMonico, members of the board. I apologize, the staff report will be a little bit longer than the last one. Before you is Ordinance 2019-01, which is a red line copy of our current Ordinance 2016-02. Every 3 years, the Building Standards Commission adopts a new model code, which is typically the international codes. For this adoption process, the California Code of Regulations, Title 24, which includes the California Fire Code, is updated. Since the fire code is applicable to all occupancies throughout the state and is our governing code for ensuring a reasonable degree of fire and life safety throughout the district, we have the ability to amend the fire code that has been adopted and/or re-adopt local amendments. Any amendments we choose to make that affect building standards must be more restrictive than the model code and must be based on local climatic, geological, or topographical conditions. Since the Building Standards Commission adopts the bulk of the Model Fire Code and provides for their own amendments, creating the 2019 California Fire Code, our adoption process includes updated local regulations while ensuring continuous fire code regulations remain in place, including some previously adopted local amendments. The majority of the amendments will allow the fire district to properly address the fire hazards within our jurisdiction. Some of the significant changes in Ordinance 2019-01 are, in Chapter 3, language that outlines our requirements for parcels pertaining to our weed abatement program, such as the requirement for parcels over 100 acres, an increase to roadside clearance, and clearance under and adjacent to electrical transmission and distribution lines. In Chapter 5, language that outlines a single set of access requirements, including aerial access for commercial and industrial properties, as well as a requirement to have access points spaced at a specified distance apart from each other as it relates to a new project. Chapter 49, language that pertains to vacant lots within the City of Chino Hills Fire Hazard Overlay Area and specific requirements for developments creating field modification areas. Language within this chapter was removed because there was some redundancy from our previous ordinance. The proposed ordinance has been reviewed and approved by our legal counsel. There are several requirements set forth for the adoption of the ordinance, such as providing the City of Chino, Chino Hills, and the county a copy to allow them time to review and comment before the public hearing, conduct a first reading of the new ordinance, hold a public hearing, advertise as required by law, and then once adopted, it must be ratified by both the cities and the county, and they will do this at their local council meeting and/or Board of Supervisors meeting. Once ratified, it must be filed with the State Department of Housing and Community Development. All those requirements have been provided to you in the adoption schedule that is attached to the staff report. The 2019 California Fire Code will become effective statewide on January 1st, 2020. It is recommended that the Board of Directors review, introduce, and conduct a first reading of Ordinance 2019-01, adopting the 2019 California Fire Code based on the 2018 International Fire Code with local amendments, approve waiving the reading of the entire ordinance and read the ordinance by title only, advise the public that a complete copy of the ordinance is available for public inspection at Fire District Headquarters, and set a public hearing for October 9th, 2019, during the second reading of Ordinance 2019-01, and direct staff to provide public notice as required by law.
Thank you. This time I'd like to open this up to any public comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for board comment. Any member of the board like to comment?
Looks like you did a good job, and a lot of nuances had to be built into this, so I'm sure that took quite a bit of time. With that, I move
Okay, have
the
a motion
item.
approved. And I've been told that reading the UFC is exciting reading.
It is.
We do have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I would agree with those comments. This is strengthening and making our community safer, strengthening your ability to deal with things. I would second that motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Mr. Williams, I didn't hear her.
Said aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
I'm going to read the ordinance. Ordinance number 2019-01, an ordinance of the Chino Valley Independent Fire District adopting by reference and amending the 2019 edition of the California Fire Code with errata and the 2018 International Fire Code regulating and governing the safeguarding of life and property from fire and explosion hazards, hazardous materials, and from conditions hazardous to life or property in the occupancy of buildings and premises, providing for the issuance of permits and collection of fees, and repealing Fire Code Ordinance number 2016-02 of the Chino Valley Independent Fire District.
Thank you. Fire chief's comments.
President DeMonico, members of the board, good evening once again. Under personnel development activities, Deputy Chief Atkinson and Battalion Chief Williams attended Executive Fire Officer Program courses at the National Fire Academy in Maryland, August 17th through the 30th. Clerk of the Board Heaney is attending the last session of the California Technical Training Institute for Clerks, also known as TTC, and will be graduating from the program on Friday. TTC is the recognized provider of clerk training for the state of California. In April 2020, Clerk of the Board Heaney will complete the requirements to be a certified municipal clerk. Clerk of the Board, he was appointed to serve on the International Task Force to evaluate the current International Institute of Municipal Clerks certification programs. She is one of 2 California clerks serving on this task force, which will help develop future educational requirements for the profession. Community Risk Reduction staff launched an online permit portal on September 3rd. Additionally, the Permits and Plan Check webpage has been modified to provide contractors with information on how to use the portal. Under Board Activities and Public Relations, the Fire District hosted a 9/11 Memorial Tribute today at Fire Station 66. The event was well attended by board members, district personnel, local officials, partner agencies, and the public. Under Organizational Items of Interest, on August 21st, Deputy Chief Collins, Battalion Chief DeSoto, and I met with representatives of LAFCO regarding their ongoing evaluation of fire protection services in San Bernardino County, and we're looking forward to seeing their draft report in the coming months. And I'd like to ask Battalion Chief DeSoto to provide us with a recruitment update. He is filling in for our Human Resources Director this evening.
President DeMonico, members of the board, thanks for the introduction, Chief. I'm here on behalf of HR Director Chrissy Couture. Thanks, Adam. Can you guys hear me? All right. My name is Joe DeSoto. I'm the Battalion Chief for the Emergency Services, and here on behalf of Chrissy Couture, as I said before. This is going to be a recruitment update. I'm going to give a report. Boris, and bear with me, Ruavivir was promoted from auxiliary worker to the office technician position in human resources. We currently also have 2 other candidates and backgrounds for the remaining office technician openings. We'll be conducting auxiliary worker interviews on September 19th. We have 1 candidate and backgrounds for the new IT specialist position. In addition, we'll be conducting the first phase of firefighter recruit testing beginning on September 16th, and over 90 candidates have been invited for the behavioral interviews. In late July, the district hosted 2 firefighter paramedic recruitment workshops at the training center. This is open to the public and advertised in social media as well as other local colleges and other related resources. The purpose of the workshop was to provide insight into the application process, job requirements, the interview, skills testing process, backgrounds, and general overview of the district, as well as the opportunity for questions for the attendees. The presenters included Battalion Chief Dave Williams, HR Director Chrissy Couture, Captain Wayne Fontes, and Chief Ray Mozak of Mount San Antonio Fire Technology Program. The workshops were well attended and provided an excellent opportunity for outreach.
Thank you. Any questions? Chief?
Thank you, Joe. We appreciate that. Under upcoming events, the Fire District will be hosting a Sharps Collection event on Saturday, September 14th, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Training Center. The ASB-CSD monthly meeting will take place on Monday, September 16th at 6 p.m. at the Panda Inn in Ontario, California. The 2019 Chino Hills State of the City Community Fair Celebrate Chino Hills with Mayor Cynthia Moran is scheduled for Saturday, September 21st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Chino Hills Community Center. The CSDA Annual Conference will take place September 25th through 28th in Anaheim, California. Our annual open house event is scheduled on Saturday, October 12th at the Training Center and Fire Station 61 from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. The State of the Fire District will take place at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, October 30th at the Training Center. And finally, I'd like to offer an apology to our staff. The men and women of the Fire District do an outstanding job, and I apologize that you've been questioned tonight on your capabilities and training, and I stand by the actions of our personnel related to the Star Fire. That concludes my comments for this evening.
Thank you, Chief. Board comments. Start with Mr. Williams.
Thank you, John. I didn't get a chance to really say what I wanted to say, because we only spoke once. But the thing I'd like to emphasize is, as John had mentioned, we were talking about 2 copies. And if the letter was put out publicly that John wrote to me, and it stated, that they were going to go to the DA, they were going to cause all kinds of problems, on and on and on. I can't remember everything that was mentioned because of this two copies of the letters that I asked to be made. And now he's saying, well, they were only 3 cents a piece. They were only 3 cents apiece. So why did they make such a big deal out of it? And that's the part that caused the problem. If they'd have come to me and said, "When we're not going to do the copies," okay, would have been it. But no, they had to send that nasty letter going to the DA and doing this and doing that and all kinds of stuff. And the letter's out there and you can see it. So let's keep things honest and in perspective in regards to what caused the actual problem. So, and that's the thing that I'd like to emphasize. Yeah, you're doing this every week and it's getting tired and I'm getting sick of it. I'm sick of it too. I was sick of it when I saw that letter. When I asked for the 2 copies, I couldn't believe it. So with that, that's the important thing, is I didn't cause the problem. I simply asked for 2 copies. And there's a situation that came about when I was on the board before in '05 and '06.
What does that have to do with?
Okay, well, let me finish, please.
Williams has the floor, let him go.
And what happened is I took an approach of, okay, well, I'm just going to let it go. And it came back and it bit me. So I don't let things go like that anymore. And what happened is I had a situation, and I'd like to do a demo, but I don't know if I can or not, if Josh would help me. I'll show you exactly what happened. And who was the chief that died from brain cancer? What was his
I
name?
don't know, but please continue with your comments.
Yeah, okay, come on, okay.
No,
All right.
Please continue with your comments.
You were responsible for that letter, that initial letter threatening and everything to go to the DA and everything. So, yeah, why don't you go ahead and admit it? That was the cause of the whole problem.
It's been addressed, please.
But
continue with it.
I'll finish here. And you talk about chastising somebody in public. I had a meeting with the fire chief and 2 fire chiefs under him. And I was joking around and I said something that, what happened is the fire chief told me that one of our firefighters had to resign because he was hooked on drugs. And I says, yeah, I understand that could be a problem. And I said, when I was off a year on my back in the year 2000, I said, I came back to work. I got released to come back to work, and I didn't get through the door of the fire station, and they met me, and they says, we want you to take the car, and we want you to go, and we want you to get drug tested, which I did. And I went and got drug tested, and I hadn't been on drugs or anything, so it wasn't a problem. But I had been getting Vicodin from the doctor. And, you know, they'd been building up and stuff, you know, and I was joking around with the fire chief and the other chiefs, and I says, yeah, I says, I think I still have those. You want to buy some? And at the meeting, a couple weeks later or something like that, the fire chief sat here at this podium and says, Wynn Williams tried to sell me drugs. And I was just joking, and yet he said that. But we don't go after people at the podium, do we? But they never said a word about that on him. But I didn't mean anything by it. I was joking around, and so that caused some real problems. And I'll tell you what happened before that at the meeting, and I'll finish this up here, is at that meeting where the 2 chiefs were there, I asked the chiefs, I needed to speak to the chief by himself, the fire chief. And at that time, I told the fire chief, I says, this thing about the 2 copies, I says, it's really getting out of hand. I says, all you got to do is just say, hey, we got things out of hand. I apologize for that, and let it go. We'll put it behind us. And it was right after that, Wynn Williams tried to sell me drugs. And things have just escalated since then. So blame me. Go ahead, blame me. Here's the problem right here. Wynn Williams tried to sell me drugs, and he knew I was kidding. And if he didn't know I was kidding, he's dumber than my 8-year-old grandson, because
We're not,
okay.
we're not gonna have that.
Well, you don't like it, do you? I didn't like it when he said I tried to sell him drugs
We're
either.
being courteous for a change.
Yeah, well, tell that to your chief.
Instead of trying to denigrate people, try and be courteous.
Why don't you tell your chief he needs to apologize once in a while? When I was talking to him about telling me that things got out of hand and apologizing, his face got so red I thought he was gonna pop a vessel. I could not believe it. It really upset him for me to ask him to apologize. And that's the problem. So I'm sorry. I am sorry that things have gotten out of hand, but I am not the problem. Understand, here's the problem. Or we're gonna go to the DA on these 2 copies. He tried to sell me drugs. There's your problems right there. They're coming after me because they don't like me, not because of anything to do with 2 copies. And Monaco even said it. This isn't about 2 copies. I never can figure out what it's about. But it's not about 2 copies. So maybe he can tell us. And that's what I want you guys to know. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you, Mr. Na.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Director Krieger?
I'm just going to make a very brief statement here. I hope you go back and review the video of tonight. What caused the problem was you asking for 2 copies of a personal document. That's what caused the problem, period. That's what started the whole thing, was you doing that, and you were told no. So I do believe an apology needs to be made, and it needs to be made by you to the chief and to the staff. You don't need to apologize to me. That really doesn't matter, but I agree, an apology needs to be made, and it needs to be made by you. Moving on, I'm sorry I missed the 9/11 ceremony today. It's something I really, really do enjoy going to. I understand it was a fantastic event, and I really want to applaud the fact that we celebrate and honor those that lost their lives on September 11th of 2001. Not only the New York Fire Department personnel, but the New York Police Department and the thank you, Port Authority personnel. Thank you. Congratulations to Steve for the 15 years. He's a fantastic guy. I love to give him a hard time, and I'm hoping for 15 more years out of you. I doubt I'll get it, but I really do enjoy the fact that you and I can have some very lively conversations, and I'm rarely right. I don't want to say that publicly, but but I'm rarely right. But I appreciate your counsel and guidance throughout the years very much. I attended school board meetings; those have been lively and fun. Thank you, Mr. Na, for that. The Chino Hills City Council meetings have gone well. Last night lasted a little long. I attended the Airport Commission meeting that was held here at Chino Airport at Threshold Aviation. And I met with the chief as well over the month. I just want to say one more time to Chief Shackelford and to the staff how much of an honor and privilege it is for me to serve with you guys, to serve with all of you. I take that responsibility seriously. I could not be more proud of you and more proud to be part of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Evanger?
Okay, I attended city council meeting, fire safe council meeting, and the 9/11 event today. I'm a little distracted with everything that's going on tonight. I had all my thing. Chief, you have my 100% support, as well as staff, and I absolutely agree with the statement that you made about the fire, et cetera. This is a fabulous organization, and yes, the board has gone astray and has distracted from doing business to try to handle absolute nonsense. Here we are talking about those letters again. I have spent the last week reading minutes from the last, 10 months, And I see here where he's talking about the drugs, it's all in the minutes. We're talking about 2 copies and that, and I'm just like disgusted that we are still here again talking about the same things that we discussed. This is from March 13th, these minutes. And we're back here talking about the same things. That's just, and it's not business. That's just, unacceptable. Director Williams, I just want to let you know you asked for help today with the computer. I actually, this afternoon, I had asked my daughter if she could look up basic computer classes so I could come and bring you a resource that you can go to. The library has an adult literacy program, which includes, it includes basic computer skills. And the courses, they have courses almost daily. And in fact, they have basic computer classes throughout the rest of this month. And it includes everything from how to use a computer, mouse, keyboard, to basic Word, Excel, internet, and email. I suggest you to maybe research that, and that might help you with some of the challenges that you have.
Thank you.
With that, I just want to, one last comment. Today and always remember those who lost their lives and their loved ones. And we'll never forget. Thank you so much for the wonderful 9/11 tribute today. It's always well-attended, and I always get a lot of comments from the community, and they just appreciate that the district has continued to make this a priority and to allow them to come somewhere and mourn over this and just, pay tribute to everyone. So with that, that's all my comments right now.
Vice President Luth.
Thank you. On August 21, I participated in the Chino Sphere of Influence Steering Committee. This could have some impact on us depending on what happens. The city is looking at the surrounding sphere of influence, lands around it, how that should or should not be annexed, piecemeal, one time. There's just a number of options being looked at, so they formed a committee to look into this. And so I'm on that committee, and obviously, if there's any concerns or things I think might have an impact to this district, I will definitely bring those to this committee and make sure we're aware. On the 26th, we met, had a policy ad hoc meeting. Those suggested changes will be coming soon. We had a finance meeting on the 28th, agenda meeting on the 3rd. Last night was a Chino Hills Council meeting. I just want to point out on September 26th, they have an emergency preparedness workshop. I'm glad to hear we're involved. I had no doubt we would be, but we are. I'm glad the city's putting that on, so hopefully people will take advantage of that and get some good information there. There was an interesting presentation by Townsend Public Affairs about a bunch of legislative actions. There's a lot of things for us and for the cities to keep in contact on, be aware of. They could have impacts on all of us. Steve, congratulations. I truly appreciate what you do, what your department does, the level that you have, from what I understand, being here such a short time, but where we're at now from where we were, that you've brought us to is to be commended. Thank you. Missed 9/11, had a work commitment. I couldn't get back down here, but I did hear, and I know a number of people here know Bubba, and he was very thankful. He really appreciates that the district put that on. He said it was a great event. I just want to, thank you to the district, the chaplains, auxiliary, and I know there's others I don't know that are involved with putting that on, but thank you to everyone that put that on. The community really appreciates that. Councilman Lucio, his comments, and I'm not going to try and put words in his mouth. He's more than capable. But what my take is on what he said tonight concerns me. He expressed a concern. He's got a responsibility to his city to make sure his city is safe, and he's counting on us. And we're putting concerns in his mind about our ability to do that. And so with that in mind, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If legal, I would like to know what steps, what options are available to us to try and address this and keep Wynn Williams from shanghaiing these meetings into personal attacks. And there may be nothing we can do. I don't know. But if there are things, I would like to ask if you could look into those and bring that back. And if this is out of order or inappropriate, please, someone please tell me. But it concerns me when we have a councilman coming here concerned about a district that he's never had concern about. So I would like to understand what we can or can't do, if anything, to try and address that situation.
Sure, I can put something together and provide that to the board.
Thank you. That would end my comments.
Well, so I would like to build on that a little bit, because I listened to Councilman Lucio, and quite frankly, you know, and not trying to put words in his mouth, but my interpretation of what he's saying is that there's question about our ability to govern. And quite frankly, Mr. Williams, you're destroying this district, and you probably won't be happy until it's completely destroyed. And that's my opinion. And I'm really concerned about the comments Mr. Lucio made. Who knows what the next step is, or if, that will occur in this, but it's really disturbing. But I would like to ask you, did you make your letter public record so I can request public record on your letter?
I'm gonna have to think about that, sir.
Okay, because if he makes a public record, I would like a copy, and I'll pay for the copy. With that, attended 9/11 today. Well, Steve, first of all, congratulations, Steve. Job well done, not only today, but many times. Chief, I appreciate you. Staff, I appreciate you. I think you're all wonderful. I think you do a fantastic job. I've been with the district for a while on this board, and just, I've seen it come a long way. Disturbs me to see it being destroyed in the manner it's being attacked. That's only one person. It's not the rest of your board. We appreciate what you do. We know what you do. You do a great job. Thank you so much for everything. With that being said, 9/11 today, attended the ceremony. It's a somber event. We all remember where we were when 9/11 occurred and what we were doing, and the impact it had on us. 343 firefighters lost their lives that day. A number of Port Authority officers lost their lives that day. It's a tragedy that, you know, back with Pearl Harbor, they said it was a day that'll live in infamy. So is 9/11. Hopefully that'll never occur again to this country. This country's changed a lot since then, but we do remember those that sacrificed everything for 9/11, and we're forever grateful to them. And with that, I would like to adjourn this meeting in memory of those that lost their lives in 9/11, those that still feel the effects of 9/11, those family members that are still alive, that are still trying to cope with 9/11. But I would like to adjourn in memory of all those affected by 9/11. And with that, meeting adjourned to the next regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Chino Valley Fire District on Wednesday, October 9th, 6 p.m. at District Headquarters Office located at 14011 City Center Drive, Chino Hills, California, 91709. Meeting adjourned.